Now, when you think about Eric Von Zip Martin's run, you might think to yourself like, dang, how can a man remain having that amount of motion for all those decades? We're talking about the 1970s, the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, 2010s. With all those jack boys, all those jammy boys, all the wild stuff going on in the streets, you got law enforcement. How did he shake off all of that? Now, a couple months ago, I did a video on Eric Von Zip Martin, and you had some guys in the comments that would say there's no way he could survive all those years in the game without being an informant. And when it comes to that, you have to just shake off the ignorance and shake off the self-hate. Now, you got mobsters that did like 40 years in the game that's still walking around in the streets. So why can't a young black man survive the game without cutting corners or becoming an informant? Being in the game for that long, you see guys come and go. You see what's selling and what's not selling, what's in and what's out. So you have to make a lot of adjustments. You have to adjust to new laws, to new law enforcement officers, to new stick-up kids, to new customers, to new hustlers. You have to adjust to a lot of things in the game, and you continue on, have to make a name for yourself. In the 70s, 80s, 90s, you have new hustlers that's out there that's trying to get some money, but they need to know that you're nothing to play with. Now the question is, was Aaron Von Zip an informant? Was he a CI? Was he a confidential informant? He definitely wasn't. Now we can't sit up here and downplay the success of his run and just sit here and say, oh, well, maybe this, maybe that. It's really not fair, especially if you don't have the proof. When it comes to guys that was doing this at a high level, you had guys that did work with police officers, and I'm not saying that they told or anything, but you did have some guys that, you know, in their playbook, they use police officers to take down their competition. Now, there is public knowledge that we had some guys in the Italian Mafia that used to use law enforcement to take out their competition. And I'm sure blacks done it. I'm sure, you know, we had whites, we had Mexicans, we had Puerto Ricans, you know, all types of people probably did it. And if you think you were going to do it at a high level without the cops being in your pocket or you being approached by anyone, because we got some big names that paid guys. You had Frank Lucas. He paid the Italian Mafia and he had the cops in his pocket. So a lot of people look at extortion as something bad when it comes to business. Extortion is not always bad because you're paying the police officers basically to look the other way. And then you had guys that's inside police stations that can erase police records. They can look out for you. They can let you know when it comes to oncoming investigations. So you benefit off of paying them. And then as far as paying the people that came before you, it's just a respect thing. If you want to hustle on their turf, they need a percentage. So Eric Von Zip becoming an informant is just out of the question. He had a solid crew. He didn't have a bunch of reckless guys around him, and he definitely didn't have a bunch of guys that was around him that was just going to jail. He conducted himself as a businessman, and he understood business. And with that being said, when it comes to business, you know you will have to pay some people to move forward. Now, having a good reputation and having a reputation of doing good business was a huge part of his success, that he barely had to pick up a gun, and that's a win. So that could keep you in the game if you don't have to go through the nonsense. Now, he was also able to operate on both coasts. He had respect on the East Coast and respect on the West Coast. So he was able to get money on the East and the West. Now, when it comes to dealing with people, he affiliated himself with the Southside Crips. He did his homework. He understood how things went on out there. He didn't just go out there trying to take over and stepping on toes. You know, he got in line with the right people. Now, another thing I want to talk about, well, it's really a question. And the question is, do gangsters retire? Now, Jadakiss once said, gangsters don't die to get chubby and move to Miami. And another person once said, if hustling's a must, be Sosa, not Tony. Now, we all saw Scarface, and we all know the story between Sosa and Tony Montana, and it was like night and day. Now, we had Sosa, person that had the discipline, that had been in the game for years, that understood the rules in the game. Then you had Tony, he was up and coming. His run was a little short. Now, Tony didn't understand the game. He didn't understand business. He was a tough guy. He was a hothead. He wasn't folding for no one. In this game, you have to know who you're dealing with. Law number 19, the 48 laws of power. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. And that's what Tony did. He offended Sosa. But anyway, the question is, do gangsters retire? And I'm not talking about being forced out of the game. I'm talking about leaving the game when you're still on top. Now, who knows if Eric Von Zip was still in the game? Well, he was one of the guys that left the game without a scar. Now, he's living proof. Now, he was that OG, that old head that was walking his dog. You'll see him sitting on the porch, watering his flowers and gardening or whatever. You will see him and he'll probably wave to you. He'll be a neighbor, but you will never know he had a crazy run in a game. Now, he stacked his money, he invested into his businesses. He had a bar and grill called Zip Code, and then he did receive appearances by Stevie Wonder and Mike Tyson, so that just tells you the type of guy he was. So if there's anyone labeled as a gangster that's retired, it will be Eric Von Zip Martin. Yeah, he's living proof. Well, he was living proof. So rest in peace, and shout out to all his people, and Harlem stand up. But this is members only. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Get the likes up, hit the comments. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. Everyone take it easy out there, man. Turn your notifications on. Stay tuned to the next video. I'm out.